With the commencement of World War II, the US initially stood by as the war began to unfold. On December 7, 1941, everything changed. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor initiated America's participation within the war, leading to a fight over both seas. American men seeking vengeance immediately enlisted, leaving their families and jobs behind. With men gone, the states were left in a position of a lacking workforce. However, World War II provided groundbreaking opportunities for women to partake into jobs. These unforeseen jobs opened up an incoming workforce of over 350,000 women, with works in factories and in their home front positions. Women workers in factories produced ammunition, while also building ships and airplanes. They also pursued roles in auxiliary services as air raid wardens, fire officers, and evacuation officers. Furthermore, we see companies and businesses transition into this female-situated society. Take trade unions, for example. Unions that traditionally served male occupation, like engineering, began to admit women members. This new profound behavior sprouted into a large movement in faction, which received national attention by the government. Congress officially announced the Women Army Corps, a branch of the United States Army. These women worked in more than 200 non-combatant jobs stateside while also engaging within every theater of the war. By 1945, there were more than 100,000 members in the Women Army Corps, including 6,000 female officers. Women empowerment and equality was drastically uprising. However, there was one crucial concern revolved around the separation and discrimination towards African American women. Even with African American women serving in military careers, such as nurses, spies, and postal clerks, their efforts and contributions to the war created no change as there were still segregationist policies. Living and dining was segregated, even training. Even though they were regarded as highly skilled, they were often given the dirtiest tasks with the lowest pay. Overall, World War II demanded the huge workforce back at the home front. With men gone, women stepped over the stigma of being a weak housewife and evoked the character of a hard-working individual. Not only did these working women foreshadow our future of victory, but they also set new standards, building a legacy for American women as we know it.
And welcome to the WWII show. For those of you who don't know, it's also known as the World War II show. And if you're new to this channel, I basically go over topics that are of controversy during World War II. Today, this week's topic is women's roles in World War II. So today's topic is, did the government and industry underutilize women during World War II? So let's begin with Patricia. What do you think about this question?
All right. So, World War II definitely changed the type of work that women did forever. About 5 million women enlisted into the workforce between 1940 and 1945. Due to the men departing from the labor force, this meant that there would now be opportunities for women. During World War II, it pushed women to take jobs in factories and defense industries across the country. World War II, women worked in factories producing ammunitions, building ships, airplanes, and even in office jobs. These jobs were seen to provide opportunities for women to move into occupations previously thought as only exclusive to men. However, most women during the labor force only worked in office jobs and not in the defense industries. Although women often earned more money than ever before, they were exempt from equal pay and negotiations. It was still far less than men had ever received for working the same jobs as they did. So, the government did not utilize women during World War II because the women couldn't even participate in the actual war while receiving less pay overall. Just helping behind the scenes wasn't enough for America, and they could have fully utilized American women to their full potential.
Okay, now, Minnie, would you like to share your opinion?
Yeah, sure. I see your point, Patricia, but do you realize that if it were not for World War II, there would have been no women involvement in the military whatsoever? I'm arguing that the women were utilized. I was an active member of the National Civilian Advisory Committee in the War Department during World War II, along with also being the chair of the Health Subcommittee in the Women's Army Corps. Starting with the First World War and greatly expanding with the Second, women started taking on a more active role in defending our country overseas. The Allies had enlisted thousands of women as nurses like the ones I had. They saw how we were capable enough to fit into certain types of occupations that could help defend our country and fight during World War II. During this time, around 400,000 American women served in many different ways. This amount is higher than the total amount of men after World War II. As I worked for these associations, I realized that women are just as capable as men are. Despite the stereotype of the housewife, by 1950, about 32% of women were working outside the home, and of those, about half were married. World War II had solidified the notion that women were in the workforce to stay.
You have a valid point, Minnie. I understand how you would interpret World War II playing a big role on women and how they're a large percentage of the workforce today. Now, Patricia, would you have anything to pose?
Yes, I see your point, Minnie, and yes, the American women were allowed to have the chance to fight to be seen as equal to men. But you know that the US did not allow women to be involved in frontline combat. I know only a few countries, one being the Soviet Union, that allowed women to fight as snipers, riflemen, and machine gunners. But even that was a small percentage. On top of that, I'd also like to bring in the point of regarding minority women in the World War II. Many African and Latino women were usually turned away from work. If they managed to obtain a place in a factory or a job, they earned much less while also were lowered to few responsibilities. So all in all, women were underutilized because the US kept them in the back as a helping hand, building airplanes or ammunitions or in office jobs, but they never allowed them to fight side by side with their male counterparts. Thank you.
And do you agree?
Well, I respect your views and I acknowledge that many of your points are well thought and are valid.
All right then, well folks, that's the end of our show. Thank you to our special guests, Patricia Davidson-Gwinon and Minnie Muffet. Can we get a round of applause for our guests, please? Until next time, this has been the WW2 show. See ya!